wanted to create a place for women journeying with cancer to be inspired and to shake up the way we look at cancer so we can activate the power of our minds to heal us from the inside. Welcome to this series, Rethinking Cancer. I'm Cindy Scott, two-time cancer thriver and author of the Healing Journal. This series is sponsored by Evolving Women, an online healing sanctuary for women journeying with cancer. You can find them at evolvingwomen.co. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Cindy Scott, all the way from Sunshine Coast in Queensland. And today I'm super excited to be introducing our next guest. But before we dive in, I wanted to express a little bit of a warning with this particular episode because it may be a little bit confronting for some. We are going to be having a challenging conversation potentially. And for me, these are some of my favorite conversations because I believe that they help to share some of the challenging times that we can have and to help normalize it, validate it, and help others to see that they're not alone in the struggles. So I know as human beings, we like to focus on the brighter seasons, the spring and the summers, but not necessarily the autumns and the winters. So today we may be going to some of those darker places because I think they're important and they really need to be brought to the light as well. So today I'm super excited to be introducing the beautiful Liza Florida. She is currently the host of the most successful, beautiful, amazing podcast called the 8 Billion Podcast. She's also a professional real estate expert in Southern California in Orange County. So she's the managing partner of the Myriad Group, a boutique real estate from Orange County. Her passion and purpose is displayed through 8 Billion Project, where she uncovers and shares the purpose of every person on this planet. And I'm super thrilled to say that I was recently interviewed on that podcast myself. I absolutely love this woman to bits. And I was so excited on the back of our conversation when I was interviewed, where I thought she has a very important story that needs to be shared as well. So welcome, Liza.
Thank you, Cindy, for having me. It brings so much joy to my heart to actually be here on your podcast.
Oh, it's so wonderful. I thought would be a really great place to start to say, I think that we live in the most amazing time where here I am in Queensland and you're in California. And I thought, why don't we just start by a little bit of a weather check-in? Like for here, it's Saturday morning on Easter weekend. It's a beautiful, sunny, gorgeous morning, but it's starting to feel like autumn is setting in. What's happening in California for you? What kind of day is it for you there?
Well, we are in full bloom of spring. It is Good Friday here.
Yes.
I think our weather is probably in the high 70s, and I come from the Pacific coast of California. So it is beautiful. I've been so fortunate and blessed the last 3 years to really live close to the beach. So that has been such a big healing process, or the water has been very healing for me. So
great space. It's so important where we live in terms of the energy and the healing that we get from our surrounds. And I know for me, my husband and I moved here about 3 years ago from a much colder place in Australia. So now we've got we say we live in paradise, and we pinch ourselves every day that we get to live so close to the beach and, sunshine 360 days of the year or something. Like it's one of the most sunny places on the planet. So it really does rub off on your sense of well-being when you're in a place that you love.
I 1000% agree. Because I believe the deepest part of my spiritual awakening happened in the last 3 years. And of course, with COVID, everything that has happened with the pandemic.
Yes.
And if I didn't have all of this water next to me and the ability to be able to walk freely next to the parks, I don't think that I could have dived deep into the spiritual journey that I did have, because the energetic field feels a lot more free and open around the water. So I do encourage you, and I'm pretty sure that's what Cindy is doing. If there's anyone, if you don't live close to the beach, if you are on a healing journey, find go to the water as much as you can, because I do believe that there's so much healing energy around there. Even just grounding your feet into like the sand or into the grass is going to be very healing for you. So
I think water, and also just being in nature, being in the forest, can also equally be as magical for people that aren't near the sea.
Oh, absolutely. Because if I wasn't by the water, the next place I'm choosing is the mountains and forest. I'm telling you, Vicky, the next half of my life is really dedicated to living out where there's so much more nature, so much more animals, so much more of open free air. And I'm pretty sure we'll get to that part in the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's dive into today's conversation. What I was drawn to is when you started to share a bit about your mum, your dearly beloved mother. Her name's Myrna, and the journey around her cancer diagnosis, not once but twice, and where that's taken you, and I guess really how that's helped you to put you on a path of spiritual awakening as well. So I'd love to hear a little bit from your perspective, the last few years for you and how that's been.
Well, thank you, Cindy, for allowing me to share this story, most especially to your audience, which I know that Cindy provided maybe a little bit of a trigger warning, but we're going to make this as light as possible to share something just so beautiful from a story, of course, that, really really brought me down a big spiritual awakening. So I have a mother, Myrna, Florida, who actually passed away of cancer in 2018. She has become my North Star and the inspiration behind 8 billion project. And I know that maybe some of you guys are questioning how I went from real estate into the podcast. And my podcast is different from real estate. It's about raising consciousness, led by love as the anchor of the show. And that is because my mother was in real estate for many years, and she brought our whole family into it. So my brother, sister, and I were raised in a real estate family. My mom, of course, was originally from our ethnic background is from the Philippines. So she migrated to the United States in 1968 and met my father, and then they started a family immediately. And she was always really good. She was such a powerhouse and an alpha female in business. And first started as a public accountant, then moved her way into real estate because she was doing everyone's taxes and said, "Hey guys, you need a tax shelter. You need to buy a home." So at one point she started realizing, she's like, I've referred so many of my clients to buy real estate. She goes, "I think I'm going to go into real estate." And sure enough, in 1988, she became a real estate agent and was super successful at it because she had an accounting background. She was able to do people's finances and say, if you just save here and here, you can buy a home. And with that, you'll have a tax shelter. And she put hundreds of families into homes.
Wow.
So real estate became our background. And, most especially because my mother brought us all into it. We grew up as real estate kids. But with real estate, a lot of people know it has its challenges. It's feast or famine. However, if you really do get in, like if you really build a great system around it, it can really bring great rewards. And that's what my mother's life brought. Mm-hmm. However, with that, she also, on one side, she has a beautiful family, a marriage, but a beautiful family, which there's three of us. I'm the middle child. So I have an older sister and a younger brother. Mm-hmm. And she had a very successful business. However, she did have a very challenging marriage. Mm. And in 2013, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. So that was her first bout of cancer. And I think she ended up doing a lumpectomy. She did chemotherapy and radiation. And so that was about I think it was less than a year, the journey, between all of the different methods of, like chemotherapy, radiation, because there was a whole process. First, it becomes the lumpectomy, then you go into chemo, and then you go into radiation. And so we watched my mom go through that. She's a very strong woman, as you know, Cindy. you what being one yourself.
Right back at you, girl.
Yeah, and she had such a great faith in God. So of course she was Christian. She was a practicing Christian. So she held Bible studies, and there were so many prayer circles. So that helped her get through her first round of cancer. Interestingly enough, she knew even in that time frame that a lot of it had to do with her marriage, and she struggled a lot with marital problems. Um, but at that point, I think what she needed to do was just get well first.
So hang on a sec. So you think, or she felt that the relationship she had with your father was actually part of the cause of her having cancer.
Oh, she knew that and believed it too. Also because interestingly enough, her oncologists, the oncologists are some of them are amazing. I know that some will only just treat for like the cancer and just be there to advise. But the oncologist that she had was very, maybe after many years, even the oncologist could see like certain traits that would come from patients that had cancer, who had very stressful lives, in some cases where it was so stressful, but they wouldn't even realize it. I mean, my mom was turning and burning real estate so fast. She was known as she was so good. She was loving and compassionate, but she was such a good closer because she had such great business skills. But what really drove her business was she had a big heart too. So that combination really, truly is a powerhouse. And she just kept, I think what she was doing was she was moving the pain and energy of not having a good marriage over and moving it over into business. Yeah. And what ends up happening is no matter what, that stress is still building up in you. Yeah. And you think you're okay because you've moved the energy or your focus in a different space, but it doesn't take away the fact that everything is still building up in your body and there's energy that's stuck all around it. Totally. And I don't think she knew that. I mean, I don't think she knew that far in. I believe you and I, Cindy, now that all of this work is advancing in holistic practices and energy healing, we have a better understanding of that now. But maybe intuitively, I mean, she knew at least that she had high stress levels. So that's really, in essence, when real estate slowed down for her because we asked her to rest more. Right. And so she did. And she was able to recover. She went into recovery for breast cancer. And I think here in the United States, and I'm not too sure if that's the case in Australia, but it takes 5 years before you can actually say you're in remission. Yeah. Is that the same? So universal, medicine is universal. And so she would have her moving forward. So 2014, she was good, and then she slowly got back into real estate, never the same again, but that was understandable because her life was more important. Now, she always had quarterly checkups, and she was nearing her 5 years. So in 2017, in March of 2017, she cleared out well on her first quarterly checkup of the year. In June, which was only 3 months later, when they did the test, they noticed something that was different. They noticed maybe some of the blood tests were a little bit different, but they couldn't identify it yet. And so it would still take the doctors June, July, August, September, October, November. It took them 5 months to actually diagnose my mother with bile duct cancer, which is an aggressive form of liver cancer. Right. And so even just in those 3 months, and they say that gastrointestinal cancers are the silent killers because there are no symptoms to it. Right. And I think what they ended up having to do is they kept sending her test results to other specialists until they found one that really saw what was really going on. But by then it was already 5 months later. So in October, which is also her birthday month, October of 2017, she was diagnosed with bile duct cancer. And what was interesting about that is because she had, of course, she had gone through her first round in 2013. I was sharing with Cindy that it took my mother about a month to really decide, because initially, deep down inside and intuitively, she knew she wanted to take the holistic route.
Mm.
However, because we're so built on the Western side of medicine, and of course, we didn't know how aggressive or what stage she was in. We were thinking maybe 3 or 4, but the oncologist never stated
Mhm.
exactly what stage she was in. Some family members kept pushing her to go down the chemotherapy route. And so it took her a while to really decide, and we gave her the space that she needed, but she decided that she was going to go down that route, but she wanted to do a combination of holistic and then chemotherapy. How, like I said, though, it's such an aggressive and rare form of cancer that she even had to have, surgery, because she had to have a biliary cord where it would drain out the liver.
Right.
So from that point, because she had like maybe an opening, because she had to have, and of course, everyone, please excuse me if I'm not having the right medical terms. I was like, well, that's exactly why I went into business and not medicine.
Exactly.
But with that came so many complications. So even before my mom started chemotherapy, she was already hospitalized several times. And there were some that were very serious hospitalizations, because I'm even forgetting the term of what she was hospitalized for. I'll have to return to it, but it's when you have like this high fever, and if your fever shoots too high, you could go unconscious, and you literally only have, I think, like 30 minutes to get to the hospital and have them put you on, on medicine before you'll go into an unconscious state. And she was in and out of the hospital because of that. I'll have to remember the term, Cindy. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Oh, that's fine. Don't stress.
Moving forward, though, she ended up, getting through those hospitalizations. She did have her first round of chemo, and she did get very sick from it.
Right. Okay.
So from that, I think it took her about 2 weeks to recover. And from that point, she just said, I really just cannot do it anymore.
So she had one chemo infusion.
She just had one infusion, and she knew, and she was done.
I felt the same.
Yes.
It's horrible. I called it napalm.
Yeah.
It's just so hard on the body. So she had one infusion, and then she just thought intuitively, this isn't the path for me.
Yeah. She thought intuitively. So she was a combination of like some holistic practices. And then she decided at that point, I think her oncologist had even suggested, have you looked into going down the CBD route? Mm-hmm. So after she had stopped that, we put her on CBD. But of course, as you know, if you haven't really been taking CBD or marijuana, you have to take very small doses of it. So she did oral. So we put it in a capsule, and she took oral. But really, that would have her asleep for most part of the day. But that's healing. You know what I mean?
Probably a lifetime of exhaustion. She probably had lots of sleep to catch up on anyway.
She had a lot of sleep, maybe probably a whole lifetime of rest and, stress that she was really purging during her sleep time. However, like I said, she decided after one chemo session or infusion that was going to be it for her. So she went down a CBD. So this was December when she had the infusion. By January, she already started CBD and the holistic route. And it was very promising. I mean, like for the first 3 months. However, if we look back, we think that what really kind of sped up the aggression too of her body starting to fail was really the first chemotherapy session.
Okay.
If we look back at it, it was the Western practices that, at least that I can see, and that my brother and sister, I mean, when we look back now, we can't see it you can't see it when you're on the journey. You can only see it when you look back.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to say. And I'm not swaying any of the audience to go either which way, because you're going to have to feel with, and what I am encouraging is that you feel with your intuition.
Mm.
And you take even the advice maybe that Cindy and I have for you. And if you are in that process of making that decision, go out in nature and really feel through it. Be in the water, take out all your stress and really feel through the process what feels right for you in your body.
Mm. I think, I mean, absolutely. This comes with the caution. This is not medical advice here that we're offering today. This
Yes.
is, one woman's experience. But
Yes.
I too, just like Myrna, I went down the path of chemotherapy because family and friends were like so fearful for me. But I'm like, I don't want this in my body. I didn't feel it was my pathway to healing, to actually put poison into my body and kill everything didn't feel like the way to health. Um, but I was really quite conflicted, and I talk about that in my book. That conflict within myself of like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want this chemo, but I know I want to live, and I'm not sure what's in between. So, I certainly dabbled with both sides of the fence. I did the Western conventional medicine, but I also did a lot of complementary therapies because I'm like, I'm going to just take myself on like a project and do everything I can do, throw everything at it to make sure that I do survive. And there's no
Right.
guarantee at the end of the day, is there? We've just got to do what we feel intuitively is right for ourselves and our own well-being.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. What I can say is, even in just the last 3 years from the time that my mother has passed, that the whole holistic practices have been rising up so much. And
Mm.
I really do believe that that's, like I told you, my mom is like my North Star and my inspiration. I feel her everywhere. Like I have such a different view of how life is. It's not that yes, she's gone physically from this physical earth, but I feel her everywhere. And that's why I really do believe that she guided me down this route of 8 billion to
Mm.
be able to share these stories, because my first healing modality came in energy healing.
Mm.
And it was guided by my mother. I remember I was at the cemetery and I was like, Mom, I really can't take this anxiety anymore. It's like heavy on my chest. Like I feel it. I said, I'm going to go see a Reiki healer. I said, can you help guide me to who's right? So I found 3. And literally I said, okay, whoever is going to contact me back first is who I'm going to go with.
Right.
And that energy healer and Reiki master is still my healer till this day.
Fabulous. Yep. Great.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
I know that my mom was leading, and it's incredible, Cindy, what's been happening, or what we've been seeing now with holistic health modalities that it's being more widely accepted,
Mm.
around the world. Or yeah, lots of people are considering that route as opposed to, of course, chemo and radiation.
I think I sense, and I'm not sure if this is true, but I think there's parts of California and even Queensland where we live there feels like there's this energy shift and this openness to exploring more holistic healing methods. We have quite a number of practitioners here, and typically the people that live here, I mean, not everyone, but quite a number of people here are much more open-minded to that way of exploring and growing, within themselves, rather than trusting that Western medicine is going to do something to them. Rather than sort of waiting for a doctor to do something to them, they want to take control, take a lead in their healing journey. And so, yeah, I think California I sense that it's quite a similar kind of energy that way.
Yes, I agree. I think anything where you haven't, like for us, and I know everyone's going to say, well, what's the connection, because we have the big Pacific Ocean. But anytime you can, Los Angeles, very densely populated. And
Mm.
where I live, an hour down, like in South Orange County, there's a huge difference. Even though we have a big population, if you can just get out into nature or go into the beach, remember, energy is everything. So when you're amongst a large densely populated population, remember, you're picking up energy from everywhere on top of all your stress, the stress that you're holding with, even your own personal life, and then all of your friends and family giving you advice.
Mm.
You remember, that's what you were just saying a few minutes ago, Cindy, is that intuitively you knew you wanted to go holistic. Like you didn't want to put, all of that medicine or the chemo into your body, but yet you have so many people coming at you. I think one of the things is really to get out and really get into just your own space to really decipher that part for you. You really, if this is your life, you owe it to yourself.
And it's your body as well. And I think one of the things that I find myself saying to people a lot is when you're first diagnosed, I mean, that's like deer in headlight stuff, right? Like you go into shock. Most people would be overwhelmed and like, well, what do I do? What does this mean for me? And so when we're in that state of shock, it is really difficult to make decisions about your health and about what your treatment plan will be when you're in that state of shock. So that's one of the things that I really encourage people to do is get out in nature, to get quiet within themselves, really tune into what is going to be the best way forward for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And another thing, if I could share this with the audience, like whatever emotions you're feeling, really purge it out. So even if it takes you days to cry it out, like it's a release from your body.
Oh, for sure.
Everything is energy. And B, if you are going to get away so you could think clearly, if you're not alone and you do decide to take people that have really, that they're in the space that can hold it for you to make the decision and not pressure any of your decisions.
Yeah, good.
It's really just love that comes from them, because and honestly though, Cindy, because my mom was such a strong woman and she had so much love for herself. I think that was like that's really that thing that kept driving her to keep pushing to stay alive. And then of course she kept it quiet. Her second round, she kept it quiet, and it was just us kids and really close family. So with that, we were able to exchange love with her.
I mean,
that
she's
becomes
very lucky to have your amazing support and holding space and love and big heartedness for her. And I'd love to talk a little bit now about what it was like for you to be that support person, because obviously, I know what it's like to be the victim. Well, not the victim, but the patient. And, from your point of view, in terms of watching your mum, not once, but twice, going through a really challenging time, how did you cope? How did you move through that?
Oh, and I'm so glad that you're giving me the opportunity to say this or share this, because in addition to, the person that's going through cancer, like what you were talking about, like the victim of the disease, there's also the family, and that in and of itself is a whole different, ball game.
Definitely.
But yes, there are moments that, you cry and then you don't want to cry in front of them, because you feel like here's the thing. Coming out this far, I look back now, it's first shock, because automatically when people associate cancer, they associate cancer with death. And so that's so hard, but you have to always remember. So if you are out there in the audience and you are supporting a loved one, you cannot think and associate it with death. I know that is going to be hard, but it's got to be practice. Your first thing has to be love. Love and light will cure anything and everything, no matter how far. I've seen the most incredible things and the most incredible stories doing 8 billion thus far.
Yes.
Love is and that's why it's become my life mission. Like I am in the process of phasing out of real estate so I can do this calling full time, because I know that love heals everything.
It does.
So when she went through her first round, for us, she was our matriarch. She was the leader of our family, the business leader. But we also knew she had to, we wanted her to heal. So we just gave her so much love. I think she found that through a lot of love and support through her church members, through her family and friends, because she made that round, that bout of cancer very vocal, and she was very open about it. I think she was even on Facebook about it. The second round was very hard, her second bout of cancer, only because she kept it very close to the family. And so, like I said, for us, our lives got flipped upside down. But when you love someone so much, you don't mind. There isn't anything you wouldn't do for someone you love so much. And so what that was like for me, my brother and sister, my sister was fortunate enough. She does medical research, and her inspiration today is for cancer survivors. So we all have everything now seems to be all an inspiration because of our mother.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Right.
My brother does real estate development. And then of course I do real estate sales, but my focus is 8 billion. It is the 8 billion project. It's about that. And so going back to what you originally asked, Cindy, we would take turns, we would rotate. But my sister was fortunate enough because she did medical research that she got to stay with my mom and be her full-time caretaker.
Mhm.
So between me, my brother and sister, we would rotate, whether it was hospital, so my brother, because he worked a little bit far, he would come in and rotate on the weekends, me and him. My sister would have like the weekdays. And then when I come home from work, she would get to go home for a few hours. So it was a full time. It was like my life for 1 year, Cindy, felt like work, go home, check on my son, go to watch my mom, and then go to sleep. And it literally felt like that. But the one thing that really carries you, that even if you're so overburdened with so much stress and you're really like, please don't take this person, if it's a loved one or family member, you have to always remember that big source of where your drive comes to keep supporting them always will come from love. And so if you can find that in the deepest parts of your heart and soul, none of that, like that whole year, I would do it over and over again, just for my mom or anyone that I loved for that matter.
I'm curious, one of the things that I was so fascinated by when we first met was your seeming acceptance of your mum's passing. Like you seem to have come to a place of peace and beauty around that. And I wonder if you could share a little bit about how you've arrived at that place, because I think that's so important for people.
Yes, this is probably going to be the most important part or I would say this is going to be the something that I've come to realize with my mom, with the whole experience with losing my mom to cancer. And in the beginning, like you said, you go through everything. Like we went through everything as a family. Do we go into medical research? Do we go to the best hospitals? Which hospital do we go? There's so many different programs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom is still like, well, I don't even know if I want to do any of that. I want to go the holistic route. Then she goes the Western route. She goes through chemo and it doesn't work. And it's almost like, I told you so. Then we go into holistic. However, here's the thing that I shared with Cindy was that in that journey, all the way, like it was a very intense 10 months journey of hospital in, hospital out, chemo here, holistic treatments here at this center. I've come to that point that when I lost my mom, I had a friend that was talking to me, and it was within the last 24 hours when we decided to put her into comfort care, which was, we would take all everything out except for, I believe it was the pain medicine that would keep her there. So she would naturally, she could go, she wouldn't have to feel pain. And I think we would lose her within anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. He was crying. He was like, honey, he goes, your mom has come to terms with it. I think that you guys have to let go. And so I was in the car and I was crying so hard. And I think there was an energetic feel. There was something inside of me that came finally to acceptance. And there's something to say about that. But one of the most beautiful things that I realized, and then I want to share this with you, whether you are on the journey as a cancer patient or whether you're a family member, no matter what you do and the choices that you make, and whether you go holistic or you decide to go Western medicine, one of the most beautiful things about life is that it happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen. And there wasn't a second more that we could have bought for my mom's life because we keep thinking, oh, we're going to go down this. What if we went into this research facility? Well, no, it wasn't meant to happen like that. It was just meant to happen like these were the choices and decisions we had in front of us at the time. We made the best one for ourselves. And this is where it got us. The greatest thing after looking at after all of that was the love that came from it. Like there is something that is so infinite about love in all, whether it's a living human being and us continuing down on this journey, or a life that we have to celebrate because theirs came, it came to them. And that agreement has always been with that individual and the creator. So
Absolutely.
it happens at the most divine timing. And if you could see that shift from that perspective, it becomes so much more different, because you will live each moment and each minute and each time with that person with so much more quality, instead of worrying that you're going to lose them. Like you will really celebrate them for those moments that they are alive. And in that, hopefully with the way that we're going, that it does, that we are able to, work from this space, really shed all of that energy from our body and really get another chance at life. And so that's why this becomes one of the most important podcasts that I do. And I will always lend my voice to this stuff, because this is really what got me in this seat today.
Thank you. I don't think I could have said that more beautifully myself.
Cindy, I always cry whenever I'm with you, but it's okay.
I do have that impact on people. They do tend to get the tissues. No, but I think to your point, Liza, it's so important and so valuable to say. I believe that we all have an assignment here on the planet, and as much as we may want to hold on to, we don't want to lose someone, and we're so uncomfortable around death. But if we were to look at your experience and the loss of Myrna just as one being, look at the good that has come from it as well. I mean, you're doing this 8 billion podcast. Your sister's now found purpose and direction. Your brother. I think there's always silver linings. And so we never like to focus on what we've lost, but look what we've gained, So I just think it's amazing when we can look at the positives that come, the light that comes from the dark.
Yes, absolutely. And I cry because it's so beautiful. That's what it is. It's not painful for me, but I also understand everyone has their journey. But if you, like I said, if you can find it in yourself to really take some time for reflection, you'll see the beauty in everything, that every path leads to a greater awakening for your highest good.
Definitely.
For you to serve others, for you to support others and love each other. And you'll know you won't miss out on these moments that are so important, because sometimes if your mind is somewhere else, it could be worrying so much, and you'll miss out on those moments of true connection with that person who really could use your love and get them a little bit further.
Definitely.
So.
Would there be any last little bit of advice you'd love to give to someone who's supporting a loved one in cancer treatment at the moment? I know.
Oh, yes. Like I said, everything has to come from that space of love. And I know that there's so many different dynamics out there. And I know that it's difficult, that we all have family and friend dynamics, but everything at the base, when all is said and done, remember, some of the last words that are ever spoken by a human, or the last breath they take, is always, I love you. So there has to be something very important from that. Love becomes the base of everything, that it becomes everything that heals, of course, an individual, and then the collective, and then the world. And that's what I'm saying, is if you can go the journey within, find it within yourself, you become the channel that shares that collective energy with everyone. So for all those families that are supporting anyone that is going through cancer, of course, please, Cindy, you can drop in all my information. I'm happy to support you. I know each situation is very is unique, I should say, but love becomes the base of everything. So.
Never a true word spoken. I will put your contact details in the notes under this interview rather, and so people can find you. And I'm sure it's very easy to find the 8 billion podcast. It's all over the net. Thank you so much for your time and your beautiful sharing today, Liza. I know that it's going to help so many people. I'm so grateful to have had you here today.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine, Cindy. I'm truly honored.
Thank you. Thanks so much for joining us today on Rethinking Cancer. I hope this episode has lifted your spirits. Come and join us again for more inspirational cancer thriver stories, expert interviews, and strategies to live your best life. Who knows, maybe it could be your story next. I'm Cindy Scott. Until we meet again.